The content you're about to enjoy comes from the archives of The Best You. We're devoted to the very best in personal development. With a magazine and resources dedicated to inspiring and changing people's lives, at The Best You, we work with the world's leading writers and trainers on the evolution of the self, and people whose journeys have been affected by their work and words. For more information, go to www.thebestyou.co.
Are you hearing a voice, or am I having a religious experience? This is so cool. I always thought God's voice would be a little lower than that. I'm so delighted to be here. I get squeamish when they show that video. If any of you paid attention, I'm just looking over at the curtains because I always feel like I'm at my own funeral. But I allowed them to show that video so that I could use it as a point of reference to talk about leadership, and hopefully in a unique way today. In the 4.5 hours that I've been asked to speak, I don't know if I'm going to teach you anything new. I want to take you on an emotional roller coaster ride and then probably conclude by lip syncing 3 Britney Spears songs so you'll never be the same. Makes it worth it to come and hang around with people who remind us to be the best you. So I've traveled the world all these years. I've discovered something very fundamental, and that is we become the average of the 5 people we associate with the most. So if you hang around with 5 broke people, you're going to become the 6th. It's just a matter of time. If you hang around with 5 negative, whining people, you're going to become the 6th. Too many times we buy into these cliches that force us into limiting beliefs like, is the glass half empty or is the glass half full? If you spend your day wondering, you've missed the point. It's refillable. Thinking positively or thinking negatively does not fill up the glass. The pouring does. I love quotes. It's easier to act your way into positive thinking than it is to think your way into positive action. It's not the sugar that makes the tea sweet, it's the stirring, it's the process. So in our limited time, I want to take you on a process, 45-minute process. So when we leave here, you will look at leadership and your opportunities to influence the world in a different way. Every single time I show this video, I'm reminded and I'm asked so many questions by people afterwards about the significant individuals that I've not only had a chance to interview and hang out with, but who are now some of my dearest friends. And everything that I've been able to accomplish in my life, whatever that is, every single person I've ever had an opportunity to meet came as a result of me being a professional speaker. So if we want to talk about leadership in a unique way, we have to talk about leadership as a communication venue, a communication opportunity, 24, 7 days a week. Doesn't matter where we are. The goal of a leader is to influence people so that they leave us saying, I like me best when I'm with you. I want to see you again. I like me best when I'm with you. I want to see you again. I've had an opportunity to fly with the Air Force Thunderbirds. I'm not in the Air Force. I've never been in the military. I've flown every fighter jet, every bomber. I had a chance to soar up into the edge of space. It doesn't happen to any other civilians. I had to have a presidential signature. And every single one of these opportunities to meet the most famous, the most powerful, to have these extraordinary once-in-a-lifetime bucket list experiences is because I focused first on becoming a communicator, so I would be invited into these venues where I would be given the opportunity to influence the influencers, to network at the highest levels, and to influence the affluent. And if that's of interest to you, we can talk about leadership in a completely different way. Because too many times people think leadership is an election. But standing in front of a room and calling yourself a leader no more makes you a leader than standing in the middle of a garage makes you a truck. It implies some action, and the number one action of a leader is to be able to communicate, to tell an awesome story, to become that polished public speaker. Regardless if you're an entrepreneur, regardless if you're in a corporate construct right now and you want that promotion, you want to climb the corporate ladder, regardless of what your motivation is, we all have to become better communicators. Do you not agree? And communication, in my mind, in my experience, begins with not only having an experience, but being able to tell and share that experience after we've had it. Classic example. A few years ago, I was on the program with Henry Winkler, the Fonzie from Happy Days. Clearly one of the funniest guys I've ever met in my lifetime. The tragedy is some of you in this room are so young, you don't even know who I'm talking about. That's wrong. You got to Google him. He started a 1970s sitcom called Happy Days, and he played the Fonz, the coolest guy on our planet. Henry Winkler and I, we finished our speeches, and he decides he wants to take some time off, treat himself to a matinee movie. So he slides in through the side exit door of the theater. And as Henry Winkler shuffles himself through the aisle, he finds himself a vacant seat. As Henry Winkler turns to sit down on the chair to look up at the movie screen, the little girl sitting right behind him smiles this giant smile. She points her finger and she slowly says, "Fonzie." Henry Winkler immediately snaps into the Fonzie character from Happy Days. "Hey, whoa." And the lady sitting next to the little girl passes out. Henry Winkler milks the moment. "Whoa, I thought this only happened on TV drama. Hey, how cool is this? Whoa." Theater manager comes out, takes care of the woman's needs. She's lying in the aisle, cold pack on her forehead. She's asked one question: "Why did you pass out?" She said, "My little girl is autistic." And that is the very first word she has ever spoken in her entire life. Which leads to a provocative question. If you're on stage, if you're around the influencers, and that's your job as a leader to influence the influencers, obviously the follow-up question is, do you believe that one moment in time can change us forever? We always hear about, you got to be present in the moment. You got to be present. What if your present sucks? It forces you to live in the past or live in the future, which doesn't influence anyone. At some point then, we've got to revitalize our bucket list and make a list of the people on our planet that you want to meet. You don't want to just get a photo, a meet and greet photo after a concert or after a speech. You want to have a real conversation. You want to have a real relationship so that you can, in a future venue, share that experience, but more importantly, share that life lesson as a polished public speaker, as an awesome storyteller. In that venue, in that mindset, and I keep saying a venue because I want you to feel like you're part of some sort of a construct that says, wait a minute, we are the message. Every single opportunity in our life is a venue for us to share our wisdom, figure out what we know that we can share with someone else to uplift them so they leave us again saying, "I like me best when I'm with you. I want to see you again." So in that foundation, let's just investigate maybe some of the best ways for us to be a leader. I've consolidated my understanding into 4 points. Number one, you've got to share a vision. You've got to be invited into venues where people also have a vision and you can inspire them to take it even higher and think even bigger. Think about it. If you have a great idea, if you have a great product or service as an entrepreneur, if you have an amazing story or an experience and you are invited onto a stage and you bomb, you're never going to be invited again. So instead of investing in these programs who say you can win stages and you can market yourself, don't you think it's better for us to prepare ourselves to speak before we spend time preparing a speech? And that's what it's about. So the 4 elements of leadership from a communication perspective begin with vision. On October 22nd, 2010, I showed up at Beale Air Force Base just outside of Sacramento, California, to go through a full day of training to prepare me for October 23rd, when I had that opportunity of a lifetime to soar to the edge of space. Let me interrupt. Why did I have that opportunity of a lifetime that really is not ever given or afforded to any other civilian? As I said, that required a presidential signature. It's because I've given over 350 free speeches to the military all over the world. I've been downrange 8 times to fire up our combat troops in Afghanistan and the rest of the war zones. And every single time I volunteer my time, at one point in time, the general commanding officer will say, "Clark, you've given so much to us. What can we do for you?" I already have my bucket list. In this case, I want to go up into space in a U-2 spy plane. And they said, okay. How simple is that to network at the highest levels possible because you're a communicator? Are you with me? So on October 23rd, we take off at Beale Air Force Base. And because it's a classified mission, I can only tell you that at 70,000 feet above the Earth's surface, you see 2/3 of the state of California. At 80,000 feet, you see mapped outlines of America. And at 90,000 feet, you tear up and believe you can actually reach out and touch the face of God. And I'm a little twisted, so I'm up there just sitting in the sounds of silence. We had to say 3.5 hours, and I had to click off the video camera inside as the altimeter was ticking past 70,000 feet because that's on YouTube. When I'm up there at a 16-mile high perspective on Mother Earth, it changed my perspective and my vision forever. And I'm looking around thinking, if we're the only ones here, this sure is a lot of wasted space. And yet you start going deeper than you've ever been in your life. I started thinking, wow, are we more than mere mortal beings living on a small planet for a short season? Why are we here? What's our true purpose? And suddenly, just from that experience alone, I'm invited to speak to the generals, to the CEOs, to the Sir Richard Branson audience members, because they're fascinated by some experience that I had, but more importantly, the time I've taken to figure out a way to extract those messages and become a storyteller. So as we're cruising around and I'm sitting in the sounds of silence, looking at the curvature of the earth, gazing in the endless blackness of space, I started having memory flashes back on experiences that truly transformed my life. Not just experiences, but in that environment, I got to go deeper. I had an opportunity to drill deeper and really figure out why I was able to come back from my paralyzing injury, for example. I played football for 13 years. One day in practice, the dream ended. We had a tackling drill. Coach blew the whistle. Two of us ran into each other full speed. Only parts of our bodies that made contact. Lyle's helmet crashed into my helmet, violent head-on collision. My right shoulder was smashed into the cutting edge of my fiberglass pads, and we slammed to the ground. When Lyle got off of me, my eye drooped. I had loss of speech. I couldn't talk anymore. My right side was paralyzed. My arm dangled helplessly at my side. I'd compressed the 7th cervical vertebrae in my neck. I'd severed the axillary nerve in my right deltoid muscle. And I'd suffered a grade level 2 concussion. And if you've seen the movie, 1979, we didn't know a lot about concussions. And so that night, I basically just perspired, shook like a leaf, cried myself to sleep in a pool of vomit. Not a great idea when you have a concussion. Fast forward, I stayed paralyzed for 14 months. And it wasn't just a physical injury, it was an emotional experience. I wasn't just paralyzed physically, I was paralyzed emotionally. I couldn't write anymore. I was right-handed. I couldn't think and concentrate. It hurt too much. I used to get these little electrical impulses. Felt like somebody plugged my arm into an electric socket. I went home to a family dinner. I'm sitting there at the dinner table, and all of a sudden my arm goes whing. I knocked a bowl of mayonnaise off the table about 20 feet. Next meal, my younger brother shows up wearing a batting helmet and goggles. He passed me the ketchup. I couldn't date. I couldn't do anything. It was a lonely time. Can any of you relate? Any of you ever been lonely in a crowded room? Any of you felt alone in a loved one's arms? I have. And I hit rock bottom. Let me interrupt. How many of us have said, I've hit rock bottom?
For complimentary resources from my book, my complimentary e-course, The Power of the Question, or recommended reads, go to www.thequestion.com/resources. For more information on my coaching or mentoring, go to www.bernardo-moya.com.
Yeah, if you're not failing a few times, it means you're not pushing yourself hard enough. May I just reorganize that thought? We don't hit rock bottom, we hit rock foundation. We hit rock core values. We hit how we've been raised. How solid is your foundation? What do you believe? Some things are true whether you believe them or not. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but nobody's entitled to the wrong facts. And we should not believe everything that we think. What's your foundation? In that environment at 16 miles plus above the Earth's surface, I had a chance to come to grips with everything I needed to understand in a deeper way. When will you pause in your life? When will you organize your life in a feng shui way that allows us to do what we need to do by thinking it through all the way to the bottom core level belief our fundamental foundation, and that was my experience. So am I in a position now to influence affluent, to network at the highest levels, to share that, yeah, I had an experience that expanded my vision forever, that could literally lead to peace on earth, because from space, there are no borders. The borders are humankind. We have people killing each other in the name of their God. And from space, the same God who made you made me too. Isn't that our responsibility as leaders, to talk in a provocative way, not just stand on a stage and do our best to sell them something the whole entire time we're in your space? Wrong. In the world of sales, the analytics prove that the average sales professional quits before they can ever close the sale. 44% of sales professionals quit after the first sales call. 24% of sales professionals quit after the second sales call. 14% quit after the third call, and 12% quit after the fourth sales call. That's 94% of sales professionals who quit by the fourth sales call, and yet the analytics prove that 85% of our sales are closed between the fifth and the 12th sales call, which means we better make ourselves more compelling to be around, more fascinating to talk to, more inspirational to be with, so that they invite us into their circle of influence, into their personal space at least 5 to 12 times, so that we can develop that trusting relationship and they will buy what we're selling. And what are we selling? Our philosophy of life, our service before self mentality, our attitude of life is a deposit, a bank where you deposit, and finally when it's time for you to extract and withdraw, you have people and resources coming out of the woodwork. That's why I've been able to fly and soar to the edge of space and serve on the U.S. Olympic team, the U.S. Olympic Committee, and carry the torch. And if it can happen to good old me, it can happen to good old you. I'm 16 miles above the Earth's surface, thinking about my paralysis, and I started to understand it in a deeper way. As I said, I was paralyzed for 14 months. I went to 16 of the very best doctors in all of North America, and every one of them told me I would never get any better. Ever heard that? And what happens if you believe it? You never get any better. If your room is full of high-end, high net worth leaders, and you can inspire them to never say never, because you know they've had as many struggles as you have, probably more, or they wouldn't be where they are today. And you can share an experience as a storyteller that will ignite inside of them more passion, creativity, and imagination to leave saying, I like me best when I'm with you. I want to see you again. You think you'll be invited back? Yeah. Today's my world premiere, my launch of my speaker program that I've invested 35 years in. I've poured into this online program, which is the flyer that is on your chair. And today's the launch. You're the first ones to hear about it. And if anybody's interested, if you could pull up that slide, please. Wi-Fi is not available in this building to all of us. I think you had to pay a little bit extra money. So even though the slide's up and you might not be able to text it right now, will you please write this down so that when you leave, you can even go out that garage door, if you will, outside, long enough to text in the number 980-9291, enter in the word EXPO. And when you send, you're going to get a link to this world premiere, this launch that will help you understand the significance of storytelling, but teach you all the ins and outs of becoming that polished speaker. Again, you don't want to be invited to be on a stage and sell something and bomb, or you're never going to be invited back. But if you've prepared yourself to speak and become that complete human being, and you dazzle the folks in the audience every time because you connect heart to heart, man to man, man to woman, spirit to spirit, you can launch your communication speaking career in one day. Are you with me? I hope you'll take advantage of this opportunity. You know, as I was up in space thinking about my paralysis, I tried to figure out if it was a miracle, my recovery a miracle, or did I have to obey specific laws? And I started realizing, no, it was not a miracle. A miracle is something that you can't really explain, so we just call it a miracle. But my process of recovery, my steps of resiliency are so obvious. Number one, I obeyed the law of purpose and intention. You see, I stayed paralyzed for 14 months because I was asking the wrong questions. Are you? I was asking the doctors how to get better when I should have been asking myself why. Once we answer why, figuring out the how-to is pretty simple. Why are you here? Why didn't your relationship work? Why did it work? What's it all about? Why? Once we answer why, figuring out the how-to is pretty simple. Once we answer why, we can start asking ourselves, why should you become an extraordinary communicator? Because when you're given an opportunity, what we need to do is make sure we do everything in our power to make people laugh, to make people think, and to make people cry. Does that sound like we're violating and manipulating their emotions? No. She's like, yes. I'm like, no. What we need to do is develop that sense of trust so we can take them on that emotional roller coaster ride by becoming extraordinary communicators. Case in point, as we share the vision, number one of the 4 steps of leadership, as we share a broader vision, a huge vision as we inspire people to think bigger, that requires that we step back and also figure out what is happening in the moment, being present in that moment so we can actually see the humor, see the lesson, and feel the emotion. Case in point. One of the things I love to talk about with leaders as a communicator is that outside of these walls is a minimum requirement mediocrity. Here's a chance for me to celebrate how we think and why, because we become the average of the 5 people we associate with the most, we know that we must be willing to pay any price and travel any distance to associate with extraordinary human beings, which is why we're here. You're extraordinary. Folks outside of these walls who didn't catch the vision of this best you, this amazing expo opportunity, are caught up in a limiting belief called minimum requirement mediocrity. The most blatant example of this I almost experience daily. Tonight, I fly to Las Vegas, and then I fly to San Francisco. 2 more speaking engagements before I arrive home in the mountains of Salt Lake City, Utah, outside of Salt Lake City, Utah, where I live. Which means tonight and tomorrow and the next day, I will be force-fed the pre-flight safety demonstration that they make us listen to on every flight. Any of you listen to this pre-flight safety demonstration on board the plane? If you do, you need therapy. I have coupons. We can meet. Anybody who has to be taught how to put a seatbelt on should not be allowed in public unsupervised. And the flight attendants give us brain damage. Bring your seat up to the most upright and uncomfortable position. Alive, dead. Alive, dead. I survived a plane crash, 1988, Stanton, Virginia, Shenandoah Valley Airport. Trust me, when you finally land, 1.5 inches does not make a difference. And the flight attendants lie on every flight. They stand up in front of us. We're here for your safety. No, they're not. When you're going down, they are strapped in and screaming just like we are. Just once, I want them to give me the microphone. Let me tell people aboard the plane what really happens in an emergency. Ladies and gentlemen, in the event of a decrease in cabin pressure, a little gold cup's going to conk you in the head. When you stop screaming, brace yourself for a 200 feet per second vertical dive. And if you're traveling with more than one child, pick your favorite. Because you ain't got time to make another choice. What happens when we get on an airplane and the flight attendant isn't thinking outside the lines or thinking outside the box? He or she's becoming more of who they already are. They're in the moment. They're present. They're extracting every ounce of wisdom and understanding from that experience. And after the fact, they look at the humorous side, they look at the provocative side, they look at the emotional side so they can share it with someone else, as I'm doing now. Fast forward, I'm coming into Dallas, Texas, huge turbulence, Delta Airlines jet. Huge turbulence, we're bouncing all over the sky. Finally, we land. We bounce, we land. We bounce, we land. Taxi into the gate, flight attendant comes over the PA system. Hi. Welcome to Dallas, Texas. If you enjoyed your flight, tell your friends you flew Delta Airlines. If you did not enjoy your flight, tell your friends you flew Southwest. And everybody on the plane goes, huh? And obviously the flight attendant had a great relationship with leadership because she then says, please remain seated with your seatbelt fastened while Captain Kangaroo bounces us the rest of the way to the gate. That's funny. And is it contagious? Yeah. Elderly woman walking in the aisle right behind me with her cane. She comes to the doorway. You the pilot? Yes, ma'am. Did we really land or did we get shot down? You have an experience. Now you need to know how to couch it and formulate it into a compelling story to make it laughable, make it provocative, make it emotional, so people will get on a plane today, tomorrow, next week, and they'll start listening to the pre-flight safety demonstration, and pretty soon they'll tune it out going, wait a minute, what do I need to do on an emergency? This is the most ridiculous thing on the planet. How can I learn and up my game because of that influence? You see what I'm saying? It has to be about communication. It has to be about our ability to tell a compelling story. The second thing besides vision, the second element of becoming a great leader is a service before self mentality. I wear this bracelet to remind me that it's not enough for us to just practice what we preach. We must preach only what we practice. Think about the significance of influence. As I said, I've had an opportunity to go on or conduct 8 different military tribute tours to our combat troops downrange, as we say. My first experience was in 2005. 16 days, Afghanistan, all over Iraq, Kuwait, the list goes on and on. 16 days, I spoke 23 times on 12 bases and out on the USS Harry S. Truman aircraft carrier to over 30,000 of our bravest men and women. Changed my life forever. Talk about one moment in time can change our life forever. And when I was in Bagram, Afghanistan, a member of the 82nd Airborne Army Ranger, he gave me this bracelet that he had made out of his parachute cord. Cool, because when I get out of the shower, it immediately dries. I've never taken it off since 2005. I still love to surf. I get out of the ocean, it dries. Has a jump medal, little miniature American flag, combat insignia, came in contact with the enemy. Stories for another day. Again, I wear this bracelet as a symbol of what leadership really means. Service before self. How may I serve you? What may I do to help you become all that you were born to be? And so because we're all public figures, and I say we're all public figures, you stepped out of the minimum requirement mediocrity in which we live and saw the wisdom in coming to this amazing conference for various reasons, but hopefully because we become the average of the 5 people we associate with the most. Classic analogy. Any of you have horses? Good segue, Dan. Any of you ever seen a horse? Tough crowd. Do you realize when you put a hard-to-catch horse in the same field with an easy-to-catch horse, most of the time you end up with 2 hard-to-catch horses? In the human experience, when you put a healthy child in the same room with a sick child, most of the time you end up with 2 sick children. Moral of the story, to be disciplined, healthy, and significant, we must be willing to pay any price and travel any distance to associate with extraordinary human beings. You're here. That makes us public figures because when you leave here, if you don't leave different than you were when you arrived, we as presenters and individuals participating have blown it. You see, as a speaker, which you'll learn in my course, the idea is to seek to bless, not impress. If you leave here today impressed with me, I blew it. But if you leave here today impressed with who you are and the ability you have to become more than you've ever been, then our time together has been worthwhile. All because of our ability to share a story and share some laughter, some tears, some provocative ideas and quotes that will change our lives forever. Are you with me? So, as public figures, I decided a long time ago that I better up my commitment to supporting our troops, because buying one of those little bows that say support the troops, magnetic bow, and putting that on the side of a vehicle and thinking I'm doing my civic duty, that's lame. That's wrong. So I decided a long time ago that every single time I saw a sailor, a Marine, an airman, a soldier in an airport, I would buy him or her a meal. What a drag. No one ever told me they don't hang out all by themselves. They're always in groups of 3, 5. When they find out it's free food, I hear a whistle in the men's room. Hey, 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 free Nathan's dogs, D5. These guys run out the door in formation. The entire reason we go to an airport isn't just to go to an airport. We can't just click on character and click off character. I have to be the same off stage as I am on stage or there's no credibility. So the entire reason we go to an airport is to get on an airplane. So I better keep that same high level of commitment to our servicemen and women at the same level that I had it at the airport. Don't you agree? I'm a big guy. I've lost 41 pounds since I got through playing football, but I'm still 6'5", about 235. I'm fortunate enough to fly first class. Delta Airlines, I think, is the greatest airline on our planet. First class, I always get a window seat. It's where I've written a lot of my books, a lot of my songs. I board this Delta jet sitting in first class, window seat. They've served the beverage. And now the rest of the passengers come aboard the plane. We've all seen it. There's always at least one passenger dragging that 411-pound carry-on bag down the aisle, holding up everybody. And if you're curious like me, you can usually see 2 air holes drilled in the top. Aunt Shirley apparently is stuck inside. They refuse to splurge for an extra ticket. Quit moving, we're gonna get arrested. They're dragging her down the aisle. Takes them 45 minutes to stick her up into the overhead. And now I'm sitting there sipping my beverage, first class window seat. I look left, and all of the passengers are stuck and stopped in the aisle, and stopped on my row is a soldier in full uniform. So I chat him up. How you doing? He said, I'm fine, sir. I said, are you coming or going? He said, I'm just coming back from the desert, sir. They're always so polite. I said, where have you been? He says, I've been in Baghdad for 15 months, sir. I said, I bet you're excited to see your family. He gets emotional. He says, yeah, I sure hope they're excited to see me. I said, guaranteed, bro, welcome home. I said, I want you to sit in my seat. Let's swap. She said, oh, no, sir. That's not necessary. I said, what do you mean it's not necessary? It's the least I can do. Flight attendant overhears me, Mr. Clark, that's so nice of you. I said, it's not so nice of me. He's been gone for 15 months. You sit in my seat. You give him everything you want. You take good care of him. Give me your seat assignment. I'm going to the back of the plane to sit in your seat. I go to the back of the plane. Wouldn't you know it? He's sitting in a center seat between 2 chubby guys. And it's a cross-country 4.5-hour flight. I show up, these 2 good old boys are looking up at me like, oh no. I'm looking at them like, double no. Excuse me. I sit down, oh no. Let me interrupt. That's what's gonna happen the second we leave this Best You EXPO, is it not? Why? Minimum requirement, mediocrity. We're around each other. This is fascinating. This is exhilarating. This is why this place should just be packed. That's why we should go out of our way to thank Bernardo and all the risks he has taken to bring us here. What a visionary human being. What an exciting opportunity.
For more information on collaborating, partnering, sponsoring, supporting, or speaking at any of our events, or finding out more about our legacy clubs, go to www.thebestyou.co. If you're interested in finding out more about the amazing content we have, please go to www.thebestyou.online and get your 14-day free trial now.
We need to understand that once we leave here, though, it's whoa, and we're human, so what do we usually do? Default. I'm so old, I bend over to pull up my socks, and I think, what else can I accomplish while I'm way down here? I started thinking about the nights I go to bed healthy and I wake up injured and all I did was lay there. Is that starting to happen to any of you? You wake up, your hips asleep, your foot hurts, you're like, hey, what's going on around here? Starting to stretch out in case something happens at 2 a.m. What allowed me to sit up and stop treating these men as objects in my way and start treating them as fellow human beings, same God who made you, made me too? It was the memory of being downtown Baghdad when it was 141 degrees Fahrenheit. And on top of that, our sailors, our Marines, our soldiers, our airmen are in 85 pounds to 125 pounds of combat gear, running towards the sound of the guns, while people are trying to shoot them to keep them from returning home safely to their families, while we're at the mall. Something wrong. May I interrupt? In the military, we give medals to those who are willing to sacrifice themselves so that others may live. And in the everyday life in which we live, the minimum requirement outside of this convention center, we give bonuses to those who are willing to sacrifice others so that they may survive. So if you're an awesome storyteller and you take pride in polishing yourself into that public speaker so that you're invited to speak to the influencers, what a powerful reminder to all of us that we need to do more than just practice what we preach. We must preach only what we practice. And through the story, we can continue teaching the lesson. You see, 4 minutes later, when I'm sitting up having a wonderful conversation now, 4 minutes later, the gentleman who was sitting next to me in first class comes wandering to the back of the plane. We get eye contact. I said, "What's up?" He said, "You made us all feel guilty." I said, "What happened?" He said, "The next soldier who got on board the plane, I gave him my seat." I said, "Hallelujah. Let me help you find yours." Now, wouldn't you know it, he's sitting in the row right in front of me in the center seat between two chubbier guys. He's so stuck, he can't even turn around and keep complaining. And by the time we took off, 4 guys who had been sitting in first class were now in the back of the plane where we should have been all along to pay tribute to these amazing military servants who allow us to be here today. And please God that not one of us knows someone who has lost his or her life or is maimed or injured today while we're sitting here laughing and thinking and being supportive of one another. Story continues. That night I checked into my hotel room. Best night's sleep I've ever had. Why? Service before self. I'm just thinking, I made a difference. I was an influencer. I was a leader without a title. Wow, I can't wait to share this experience with the world as a speaker. And then it happened. The next morning I wake up, I shower, I shave, put on my coat, put on my tie, show up to the ballroom, 5,000 folks, huge national convention. And wouldn't you know it, the guy who introduces me is the guy who was sitting next to me in first class. He was the CEO. We hadn't had time to get acquainted. He shows my little lame video, and then he makes it real personal that 4 of us in first class inspired one another to give our seats up to these servants, these military soldiers who are willing to give up their lives if necessary so that we may live and dream that mighty dream and take advantage of the freedom here in America. What's the story about? People are watching. If you want to be a leader, we must perfect and polish our ability to influence. And the best way to do that is to have stories and experiences that we can share that inspire. Remember, inspired people don't have to be motivated. Stories and experience that will inspire all of us to leave different than we were when we arrived. Are you with me? So the third element that allows us to be that extraordinary leader is something that I call service before self, which was the second one. Service before self with self before service. Let me illustrate. My dad's my hero. My dad was a cotton farmer on the east side of Phoenix, Arizona. Became very, very successful. Started his own insurance company, his own financial corporation. Never an athlete, dark hair, dark eyes. My mom, the greatest mom who ever lived. Youngest of 9 children, raised by a single mom. Anybody here raised by a single mom? We love them. Anybody here a single mom? We love you. My mom came to hear me speak the other day. She hasn't been in my audience forever. She's 89 years old. She's on the front row. I introduced her to the crowd. They were so gracious. I said, my mom at 89, she still inspires everyone in the world that she comes in contact with. The other day, she goes for her annual physical. Doctor says, Ruby, you need more exercise. So she signed up for an aerobics class for seniors. And sure enough, she bent over, jumped up and down, twisted and turned, perspired for over an hour. But by the time she got her leotard on, the class was over. And my mom's on the front row. That's not funny. That's not true. My mom's the greatest mom who ever lived. I could go on about my family. I want you to think about your relationship with your dad or your mom or with both of them. And what lessons of life you learned that give you that I hit rock bottom, no, I hit rock foundation. How was I raised to understand my ability to get back up and go again? My dad battled cancer for 6.5 years. I wanted to be by his bedside when he took his last breath, and that didn't happen for me. I was up in Seattle, Washington, Northwest United States. I was in town for 2 days to speak to 2 large trade associations downtown at the convention center. I'm staying out of town at the Seattle Airport Marriott Hotel. It's Friday morning, October 12th. Showered, shaved, put on my coat, put on my tie, usual routine. And all of a sudden the phone rings. I think it's my ride downtown to the convention center, so I pick up the phone and I almost flippantly say, I'll be right there. But for some odd reason, I just stood there. 15 seconds of silence later, my younger brother's voice pierces the quietness of the call. Danny? I said, what's up, Paul? He said, Dad died this morning at 7 a.m. I said, whoa. Sat down on the edge of my bed, and the tears just started to fall. Let me interrupt. I'd give anything to have my dad back one more day. It's too late. Leave no regrets. Is that a powerful message for influencers? Is that a powerful leadership message? Be present in the moment, whatever that means. That's the goal. We can no longer just flippantly have someone say, be present, and not realize what it really means. I said, how's mom? He said, well, she's all right. She's doing well, surrounded by love. I said, tell her I'll call her as quickly as I can. Give her a big hug for me, will you please? I hung up the phone with my brother, and then I called him back. I said, I got to figure out what I'm going to do. And he goes, well, yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. What are you going to do? I said, well, Dad and Mom have spent an entire lifetime teaching us to keep our promises, teaching us to keep our commitments. I said, I'm going to go speak. That's what Dad would want me to do. I can't imagine what it would be like to be a meeting planner with a 90-minute slot to fill 3,500 people in the audience and not have the speaker show. I said, and then I'm going to spend the night and I'm going to speak on Saturday, keep that commitment, then I'm going to hustle home. God knows I need your support. Hopefully I can give you some of mine. I hung up the phone with my brother and I sat there and openly wept like a wee child. This is my dad, my hero, gone with regrets. 15 minutes later, the phone rings again. This time it is my ride. I tell him I'll be right down. I hang up, I go into the washroom, splash some water on my face, try to freshen up to the best of my ability. I leave my hotel room and I get on the elevator. And as the elevator doors start to close, the corner of the bellman's cart nudges its way through the opening and they bing back open. And on the elevator comes this way overzealous psycho bellman. I'll never forget him as long as I live. He's pushing this runaway cart onto the elevator, forces me back to the right rear corner of the elevator, and I assume the elevator position. Doors close, we start going down, and he is relentless. Whoa, did you see the beautiful sunshine? He said, I've been up here in Seattle, Washington, 15 years, rained every single day. You must have brought the good weather with you. How are you doing? I said, I'm fine. You know, when you've been stared at for a while and you start to feel uncomfortable and you just kind of feel it. You don't even have to look at the person staring at you. You just know that it's happening. All of a sudden, this bellman, he says, hey, sir, you're not okay. How you doing? I'm like, I'm okay. He says, no, you're not. You've been crying. I said, well, I just found out my dad died this morning and I'm really sad. He said, whoa. Elevator comes to the lobby, doors open. He goes his way. I meet my ride. He drives me downtown to the convention center. I'm introduced and I make my speech. I had to dig deeper than I'd ever dug in my whole entire life to make that speech. Got to the end of my speech and I said to the audience, I'd like to conclude with a little song from one of my albums. I said, the reason why I want to sing this little song is because my dad died this morning and it's the first time he's ever heard me sing it in public. And again, I dug deeper than I'd ever dug and maybe sang the song better than I'd ever sung it. I concluded my speech and had the driver take me back to the Seattle Airport Marriott Hotel. Here's where you come into my story. Here's where you come into my challenge. To log on, to go outside, to type in, to come be part of my tribe. I want to help you become that extraordinary communicator. We have to be able to tell stories to influence. And the purpose of a leader is to grow more leaders, not generate more followers. You don't want to be on a stage and then bomb because you haven't taken the time to figure out what you believe and then polish the storytelling process. Please stay in touch with me. I want so badly to keep in touch. I get back to my hotel room, and there on the dresser of drawers is a basket of fruit. And it's not your basic basket of fruit that's been delivered from the hotel gift shop. We've all seen these little color cellophane, little bow, little sterile stamped card. They never get our names right. Thanks for staying with us, Sergio. This was the coolest gift I'd ever received. It was a broken, smushed basket. One side was completely caved in. It looked like it was someone's second thought, maybe after hours, no resources available, but they still wanted to make a difference. Can any of you relate? I can see this hotel employee walking through the lobby. They look in the garbage bin. They're like, oh, whoa, that's too good to throw away. Wow, Bernardo will be really, really proud of us. Do more with less. Whoever delivered to my hotel room obviously was into presentation because he turned the broken, smushed part of the basket towards the wall. Apparently, whoever delivered it walked past the big fake tree in the lobby, yanked off one of those fine rubberized leaves, stuck that in front of the broken, smushed part of the basket. In my basket of fruit, there was a tomato and a big giant carrot and a handwritten card that said, Mr. Clark, I'm sure sorry your dad died. I'm supposed to get off work at 5 o'clock. I've asked to stay on all night long so I can be here just for you. Room service closes at 10 o'clock. The kitchen has agreed to stay open all night long so they can be here just for you. If you need anything, just call and ask for me. Signed, James, the bellman in the elevator. He's not the only guy who signed my little card. Every single hotel employee that night at the Seattle Airport Marriott Hotel signed my little card. I still have it matted and framed, hanging on my office wall to this day. Let me debrief and conclude. Here we have the youngest person in the entire employee payroll who seemingly gets it. Guess what? Age has nothing to do with our ability to lead and influence. We must be present and rise to the occasion and have a bucket list of people we want to interview, that we want to become friends with. Have a bucket list of places we want to visit. Why? So you're more compelling to be around, more interesting to talk to, and therefore you have something to polish before you work on marketing and getting on stages. You got to be the best communicator you can be. Let's talk. The second thing I learned from this 18-year-old man, money's not a motivator. He's the lowest paid person in the entire employee payroll, and yet he wants to make a difference. Why? It's not enough for us to practice what we preach. We must preach only what we practice. We have to have a service before self mentality, which is self before service, being all that we can be for everybody who will allow us to be there. And the last thing I learned, loyalty. Loyalty. The definition of sales is the transference of trust. The definition of leadership is the transference of trust, which brings us to the fourth element of what it takes to be an extraordinary leader. We must be in a position to support, not trade, support, not give because we're expecting something back. That's trading, as Bob Proctor would teach us. It's about service before self and self before service, loyalty. So to conclude, obviously a story, only a 30-second vignette to tie a bow around our time together that illustrates this word support, but gives you a story that will resonate so you will remember the message once we leave. A mother encourages her daughter to come home as soon as school is over. The time comes, the time goes. 30 minutes later, daughter walks in through the front door of her home and her mother scolds her. "Where have you been? I've been worried sick." She says, "Oh, mommy, I walked my friend Sally home. She dropped her doll on the sidewalk. It broke all to pieces. It was awful." Her mother said, "So you're late because you stayed to help your friend pick up the pieces of the doll and put it back together again?" She said, "Oh no, mommy, I didn't know how to fix the doll. I just stayed to help her cry." Not just tears of sadness, but tears of victory and joy. We need to be able to communicate at that deepest level. I hope you'll keep in touch with me. Hopefully you'll go outside and text in. And before we leave this expo, you'll have an opportunity to join my tribe. You're in for a treat. One of my heroes, Dave Meltzer, is coming up. Interviewed by Scott Duffy, one of the heroes, one of the extraordinary influencers in our entire world, not just in the United States of America. And if I said anything that will compel you to become a great communicator and an awesome storyteller, wait till you hear what these two gentlemen bring to the stage, especially Meltzer, as he made it big with money because of service before self and helping anyone he possibly could to leave saying, "I like me best when I'm with you. I want to see you again." Thanks for having me. Find Bernardo before the day's out and thank him personally. You have a great day.
For more information, go to www.thebestyou.co.